We are live.
Excellencies, distinguished colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, a very good morning from Abu Dhabi in the United Arab Emirates. Thank you for joining us for the second of the technical webinar series on accelerating the development of offshore renewables and ocean energy technologies in the small island developing states. This particular webinar focuses on ocean thermal energy conversion, or Otech in short, and is being organized by the International Renewable Energy Agency, IRENA, through the SIDS Lighthouses initiative in collaboration with the Alliance of Small Island States, AOSIS. My name is Arieta Monelevu-Rakai, and I will be moderating this event. I extend a warm welcome to all our distinguished speakers and participants who are joining us virtually this morning. I would like to extend a very warm welcome to His Excellency Dr. Aubrey Webson, the Chair of AOSIS and the Permanent Representative of Antigua and Barbuda to the United Nations, who will be delivering the keynote address. Excellency, thank you for accepting our invitation. I'd also like to extend a warm welcome to all the speakers and presenters in this event, and also thank you for accepting our invitation. And thank you to all the attendees and the participants that are listening in. We also recognize IRENA and AOSIS efforts in bringing us together in this virtual setting to discuss this very important topic and identify the way forward to accelerate ocean energy technology deployment in SIDS. The Director General of IRENA, Mr. Francesco Lacamera, will be delivering his opening and welcoming remarks through a video message, which I now request to be played.
My dear friends, His Excellencies, Dr. Aubrey Webson, Chair of Alliance of Small Island States, distinguished speakers, ladies and gentlemen, it's my great pleasure to welcome you all to the Accelerating Ocean Thermal Energy Conversion in Small Island Developing States. This event is the continuation of a three-part technical webinar series on offshore renewables and ocean technologies focusing on floating solar photovoltaics, wave, tidal, and offshore wind. According to IRENA's flagship report, World Energy Transition Outlook, emerging technologies such as ocean energy technologies have an important role to play in decarbonizing electricity supply along with mature technologies. COP26 has shown us that there is the political willingness to build a net zero future, but I think we need to feel a stronger urgency to act. If we want to hit the 1.5 Celsius pathway, we must be ambitious now and build a solid roadmap to 2030, keeping in mind that SIDS should be our top priority. Distinguished participant, this event is timely following the recent convening of the 12th session of the IRENA Assembly under the theme Energy Transition from Commitments to Action. At IRENA's Assembly, member states, including SIDS, highlighted the actions and partnership needed from the international community to support the achievement of their sustainable development and climate objectives. Our agency continues to align its work plan and foster strategic partnership that aim to address the specific needs and priorities of SIDS. These include tailored technical assistance, research, analytical work, and innovative financing solutions that are implementing through strong and coordinated collaborations. Recently, we established the collaborative framework on ocean energy offshore renewables to facilitate collaboration on the opportunities for the future deployment of these technologies, with Tonga and Italy serving as co-facilitators. In addition, IRENA has published two significant reports through the SIDS Lighthouse Initiative. The first on the role of offshore renewables in fostering a global blue economy, and the second on the latest innovation trends in ocean energy. These reports provide a clear message that renewables can replace costly power generation systems that are dependent on too highly priced imported fossil fuel. Moreover, with offshore renewables, there is a tangible reduction of the use of scarce land which would have otherwise been used for energy facilities. Finally, these reports identify that the use of offshore renewables can contribute to strengthening water security through sustainable local desalination. Further building on this work, this technical webinar series aims to present the latest developments, including best practice and lessons learned in the deployment of various offshore and ocean energy technologies as they move closer to commercialization in SIDS. Otec, which is the feature of this event, has long been recognized by many islands regions and SIDS for its potential to simultaneously address the energy nexus, which include food and water needs. Otec's main advantage is the ability to provide continuous baseload power around the clock. Otec can further be coupled with application technologies to provide cooling, to produce fresh water, and for aquaculture, which can further provide increased socioeconomic benefits to SIDS communities. Furthermore, to the scarcity of land for renewable energy development and the consistent tropical condition for SIDS, Otec can be a viable alternative solution to fossil fuel. Such a niche market can help to demonstrate the technology, increase investor trust, and lower the cost of electricity. This webinar has been organized by the SIDS Lighthouse Initiative, which is a framework for action to accelerate the uptake of renewables, including ocean technologies in SIDS. The SIDS Lighthouse Initiative also plays a supportive role in SIDS development through capacity building, technical assistance, project facilitation, and access to finance. In this regard, I would like to acknowledge again the presence of Dr. Aubrey Webson, Chair of our SIDS. I wish to express my gratitude for your commitment to our joint effort to support SIDS in the overcoming the challenges associated with the sustainable development of the ocean energy resources. It's my belief that IRENA Houses Energy Compact and our Memorandum of Understanding will continue to spur on further collaboration. Before I conclude, let me also extend my sincere appreciation and thank you for the invited speakers for accepting this invitation. We are very much looking forward to a fruitful discussion on the issues pertinent to accelerating the development and the deployment of Otech in SIDS. It is my hope that this webinar and the following third webinar on wave and tidal energy later this year will stimulate discussions on how to leverage partnership and much needed resources for the development of ocean energy in SIDS. Thank you all for attending, and thank you all for your attention. I wish you an enlightening experience following this webinar.
Thank you, Director General, for the warm welcome and sounding the message loud and clear to choose action, in particular in accelerating the deployment of renewables in small island developing states. I now have the honor to invite His Excellency Dr. Aubrey Webson, the Chair of AOSIS, to deliver the keynote remarks. Excellency, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes, sir.
Excellent. Thank you so very much. Thank you, my dear friend Francisca, for the very warm greetings and the very kind words. Excellencies, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon from New York, good morning in Abu Dhabi, good day wherever you are, greetings. Let me begin by, first of all, I want to say thank you, my friends, for joining us for the second part of this technical series, which is aimed at exploring offshore renewable energy development in small island states. This is an important and timely initiative, as SIDS are currently exploring avenues for sustainable recovery. Currently, most of us, most SIDS, are heavily dependent on imported fossil fuel for energy generation, resulting in high fuel import bills and potential disruption to essential services due to global shocks such as the COVID-19 pandemic. There is a need, my friends, to enhance national resilience in SIDS by accelerating the transition from fossil fuel to more sustainable energy sources. This initiative today also dovetails nicely with the implementation of the new NDCs that SIDS have put forward under the Paris Agreement, which contains ambitious renewable energy targets. For example, my own island, Antigua and Barbuda, is aiming for a target of 86% renewable energy from local resources in the electricity sector by 2030, with 100% renewables for all government operations. To achieve these targets, however, within the envisaged time frame, adequate and accessible means of implementation needed to be mobilized. This should also be supplemented by genuine and durable partnerships, as outlined in the Samoa Pathway. In this context, friends, AOSIS is pleased to have formalized the long-standing partnership with IRENA through the signing of a MOU at COP26. This is aimed at advancing the development of renewable energy across small island developing states. Through this partnership, we hope to scale up the existing efforts, including the joint energy compact with the SIDS Lighthouse initiative to achieve a total of about 10% kilowatts installed in renewable energy capacity in all SIDS by 2030. We also hope to identify innovative solutions that can unlock new avenues for SIDS to accelerate development of renewable energy. In this context, we believe there is vast potential for exploring offshore renewable energy in these islands. SIDS, excuse me, SIDS have limited land mass and often dispersed populations, which make it challenging for large solar or wind installations. However, with limited seasonal variability, almost no heating cost, and abundance of marine resources, we call ourselves large ocean states. Many islands have the potential to meet energy demands through tidal and ocean thermal resources. Friends, for example, Barbados, St. Lucia, Tonga, Trinidad and Tobago, Cape Verde. These have ideal conditions where wave energy generation could contribute substantially to the base load. Sao Tome and Principe has also recently announced plans for the development of the first commercial floating OTEC platform. These technologies have respective benefits for drawbacks. Therefore, it is very important to ensure a tailored and effective approach when we are applying or thinking of applying these. Determining feasibility studies is the first step, as not all island countries have demonstrated hydropower potential and geothermal, geothermal south generation is still under exploration. Another obstacle which must be addressed at any early stage is the high cost of establishing the energy system. The quantum of resources required for this large scale transformation cannot be met through our strained fiscal budgets. As we know, small island states have limited fiscal space. And access to public financing is often restricted due to eligibility criteria. Institutional reforms are therefore necessary to factor in the special circumstances and vulnerabilities of SIDS in the context of development and the climate finance. Instruments such as blended financing should be leveraged to maximize the impact of available resources. In conclusion, I wish to reiterate that even amongst SIDS, the most effective and the most efficient and the sustainable solutions are very contextualized specific, with new technologies evolving every day and the cost of renewables falling. Combinations of feasible renewable series for electricity generation may be the most cost-effective and may be the most practical solution to meet the demands of the islands. Therefore, my friends, excellencies, colleagues, we must draw from lessons learned and find ways to scale up relevant best practice. I am confident that today's discussion, as well as the ones that follow, some of it made reference by the Secretary General, will pave the way for progress towards greener, bluer, and more resilient economies in small island developing states. Madam Chair, I thank you.
Excellency, I thank you for your inspiring keynote and for providing the context for the sessions that's to follow. Thank you also for highlighting the pertinent issues that needs to be addressed, such as the costs, the financing that is needed, addressing land space, as we are owners of large oceans in the small islands. Excellency, we believe that the context you have set will further generate insightful discussions in the following sessions. We thank you sincerely again for being with us this afternoon. Distinguished colleagues, speakers, and ladies and gentlemen, as we only have 2 hours for the entire event, I suggest that each speaker keep to your allotted time and in sharing your perspectives and experiences. And given that we are on a virtual platform, we do apologize in advance if you do experience any technological challenges. If it is not possible for any of the presenters to intervene, we will move on to the next speaker while we address the difficulties to ensure that the presenter can intervene as soon as possible. As you'll see on the chat box, distinguished colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, we are encouraging participants to post your questions in the chat box. And we will try to address all these questions if time does permit. Our first presenter this evening is Mr. Amjad Abdullah. Mr. Abdullah is the head of partnerships with the Country Engagement and Partnerships Division in IRENA, and he will be providing the background and setting the technical scene for the discussion on Otech. Amjad, you now have the floor.
Thank you very much, Accelerator, for your kind introduction. Friends, Director General La Camara, Ambassador Vapsin, the Chair of IOSIS, my good friends, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, thank you on behalf of International Renewable Energy Agency for being here with us today on this webinar series on ocean energy technologies for SIDS. More specifically on this event dedicated on ocean thermal energy conversion technologies. For those of you who may not be familiar with IRENA, the agency is an intergovernmental organization headquartered in Abu Dhabi, UAE, established in 2011 with a mandate to promote the widespread adoption and sustainable use of all forms of renewable energy. Currently, our membership comprises of 167 countries. Out of these, 33 are small island developing states. Next. Since its inception, IRENA has focused on catering to SIDS energy transition through tailored support. To address the unique circumstances and needs of small island developing states, IRENA established the SIDS Lighthouse Initiative as a framework for action which aims to accelerate the uptake of renewable energy by SIDS and to support the decarbonization of their economies. Activities are spread across 11 priority areas of intervention, which ranges from support in NDC enhancement and implementation, as well as capacity building to the crucial nexus between renewable energy and various SDGs and decarbonizing transport and other end-use sectors. In particular, emphasis is placed on the developing all sectors of renewable energy sources in small island development states, including ocean energy, which will be the main focus of today. Next. The SIDS Lighthouse Initiative is currently comprised of 38 SIDS across 3 regions, namely Caribbean, the Pacific, and the Atlantic and Indian Ocean states. Also part of this collaboration are 31 non-SIDS countries and partner organizations. Next. In order to advance our discussions for today, allow me to introduce IRENA's collaborative framework on ocean energy and offshore renewables, which is co-led by the countries of Tonga and Italy. This country coordinated framework was established to facilitate peer-to-peer collaboration and exchange of knowledge among governments on specific issues such as marine spatial planning, fostering R&D programs, coupling of offshore renewables with power-to-X technologies, and grid interconnection for offshore generation. Next. Within this framework, IRENA, through its Lighthouse program, has advanced its own line of work to foster the development of ocean technologies in SIDS. This includes ocean energy publications, as well as fostering of strategic partnerships on ocean energy, such as our collaboration with UNOHR LLS on the SIDS Business Network Virtual Forum, as well as our IRENA IOSIS Energy Compact and Memorandum of Understanding as alluded by our Director General. Our other partners worthy of mention are the IRENA Global Wind Energy Council, Energy Compact, and Cooperation Agreement, which seek to foster the development of offshore wind energy, among other things. and the Palau Renewable Energy Roadmap, which seeks to develop ocean energy technologies, and specifically Otech. Next. The agency uses a series of tools to help foster the energy transformation. Renewable energy assessments and quick scan assesses the degree of readiness of one country towards large-scale deployment of renewable energy. Grid integration analysis supports member states in integrating renewable energy generation into already existing grid infrastructure. Renewable energy roadmaps, on the other hand, are a tool to support SIDS in attaining their renewable energy goals, whereas climate action support describes the agency's line of support towards SIDS, NDC enhancement and implementation. Finally, IRENA through SIDS LHI works on facilitating access to finance and project implementation on the ground. My colleague will elaborate on IRENA's project facilitation support in the session on financing Otech. As mentioned by our Director General, this event is a second segment of a three-part technical webinar series. This webinar will deep dive into Otech technology and projects and aims to promote Otech in SIDS through the sharing of global, regional, and national experiences, best practices, and lessons learned to identify enabling policy, regulatory, technology, and financial frameworks for increased development of Otech, and to explore opportunities to advance Otech beyond assessments to deployment through investment, partnerships, R&D, and demonstration projects. It is recognized that emerging technologies such as energy could make a significant contribution to the global energy mix and decarbonization of goals. The theoretical resource potential of ocean energy is so vast that it could meet present and projected global electricity demand well into the future. From the figures, we can see that more than half of the potentials come from Otech, as these resources can be harnessed in more locations than other technologies, particularly in tropical areas relevant for islands in the ACE, Pacific, and Caribbean region. Otech is followed by wave energy, salinity gradient, and tidal energy in terms of resource availability. Next. As you may know, Otech power generation makes use of the temperature difference between the warm surface and colder, deeper later of the ocean. In terms of geographical distribution, from the darker green dots on the figure on the right-hand side, we can see that Otech projects in various stages of development have been explored in tropical regions between 30° north and south latitude, which presents ideal temperature condition for thermal energy conversion. Countries including but not limited to Hawaii, Japan, Nauru, Martinique, and South Korea have all explored Otech projects. Idea and prototypes with varying applications and success. Next. Despite Otech's great potential, the technology is still in research and development phase with limited deployment demonstration projects and various challenges before reaching at commercial scale. According to IRENA's research, most technology components for Otech plants up to 10 megawatt are well understood and demonstrated. However, there are challenges in scaling up plants to 100 megawatt and beyond. As an increasing number of companies, research institutions, universities, and investors are allocating resources to the development of all ocean technologies, we envision substantial growth in deployment and installed capacity in the coming years. In addition, we note that advances from the offshore industry can also be used to support and de-risk the deployment of large-scale Otech projects. Despite the slow uptake, and know that the sustainable development of ocean resources plays an important role in the economic growth of offshore industry sectors. Several opportunities exist in the agriculture, tourism, and transport sectors in SIDS that could be significant to enhance the economic case of ocean energy and to drive into new business models with additional revenue streams. Such synergies can help ocean energy reach commercialization levels and enable wider deployment. In fact, Otech is a technology well suited to support the blue economy activities in islands. For example, the water that is used in the electricity generation process of Otech can be reused in an air conditioning system because smaller temperature differences are needed for SWOC than the Otech. When combining the two technologies, produce power using Otech and provide air conditioning SWOC, the effectiveness of both technologies can be further enhanced. Adding a SWOC unit could create additional revenue streams for Otech and can thereby make the technology more feasible and aid its commercialization. What is more, cost of installation, deployment, power, and maintenance can be shared, as Otech uses pumping stations and water intake pipelines by default. This hybridization could even be taken further to produce fresh water or support aquaculture, as presented in the figure. One option to accelerate the commercial development of ocean technology, including Otech, is expanding into other markets to demonstrate and build confidence around ocean energy technologies. Islands and remote coastal areas are ideal candidates for demonstrations since they have smaller entry challenges than conventional markets. Have ideal geographical preconditions can benefit from the innovative business models and hybrid renewable electricity generating systems. To unlock the potential of ocean energy, IRENA proposes the following recommendations, which are not exhaustive. In particular, for small islands, there is a need for increased technical and financial support for research and development and supporting test centers in SIDS region, which have ideal conditions. Innovation in business models and financial structures, which are tailored to SIDS economies, will be key, complemented by appropriate policies and regulations to support the deployment. Furthermore, SIDS economies rely heavily on their ocean to sustain their livelihood, and therefore the introduction of ocean technologies must address the public's concern about the environmental and social impacts. Finally, SIDS will require support to ensure that the proposed ocean energy solutions being pursued are technically and economically feasible. This brings me to the end of the presentation. Thank you for your attention, and we look forward to addressing some of these topics further in the various sessions. My team and I would be happy to take any questions that you may have via questions and answer chat feature. I thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Amjad, for providing the background and the context on unlocking the ocean potential in islands. Also, thank you for highlighting how IRENA is supporting the energy transition efforts in the island states through the SIDS Lighthouses initiative. I will now hand over to Mr. Pedeli Nakavulevu, the IRENA specific focal point, to moderate the next session on the applications and benefits of Otech, as well as we'll be hearing from SIDS, various SIDS perspectives on deployment of Otech in their countries. Pedeli, over to you now.
Thank you, Mr. Abdullah, and thank you, Ariat. Good morning, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen, the initial session this morning is on case examples on the applications and benefits of Otech. First up, we have Mr. Yasugi Ikegami, the Director of Institute of Ocean Energy, Saga University, Japan. Professor Ikegami has been involved in research, teaching at the Saga University for over 30 years. He has been based with the Institute of Ocean Energy at Saga University. It is one of the leaders in Otech power plant research and also focuses on many of the technology's secondary benefits. With this work, Professor Ikegami and the Institute of Ocean Energy are currently operating pilot-scale Otech plants and are located in Japan, where necessary oversight by Saga University. The Institute has collaborated with Genesis Inc. on Otech feasibility studies for projects in Japan and Malaysia Research Division of Ocean Thermal Energy Conversion at the Institute that focuses on the following topics: study on Otech heat engines and systems, study on seawater desalination processes by using low temperature differences, the study on plate type heat exchangers for as an evaporator and a condenser, thermodynamical study on finite time thermodynamics on low grade thermal energy conversion. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Professor Ikegami. Thank you.
Yeah, everybody. So good morning and good afternoon. So thank you for Chairman. I'm very pleased to have this honor to chance. I'm very happy to present our activity and Otech benefit. So let's start my presentation. So application and benefit of Otech. So especially we would like to show the Kumejima model in Japan. So this Kumejima model is a catalyst for the sustainable island development. So in Japan now is 15 deep sea water intake site from the north area to southern area. Kumejima is the biggest deep sea water application. So each deep sea water used for the fish and agriculture and freshwater, so on. So now is Kumejima applied to the electricity. So I would like to show the Kumejima model. Kumejima model is not only electricity. So Kumejima concept is used to the deep sea water resources for the energy and food and water. So Kumejima Otech plant 100 kilowatt just operating from the 2013. So the over 5 years continuous operating. So this is a world first operation in the second boom Otech development. So now Japanese government just started this fiscal year to intake tube facilities 10 times current intake piping. So after that, so Kumejima and including the industry about 8 times. So detailed planning survey for the expanding intake capacity installed in the currency underway funded by Japanese national government now. So after that, we expected the 1 megawatt Otech operation. So in Kumejima now is a demonstration characterizing development. So until now, over the 11,000 visitors, including press, government, academia, and visitors for the 68 countries have visited the existing Otech demonstration. Almost many Pacific island, tropical island visited Kumejima model plant. So deep sea oil around the world. The first intake established Nauru in Hawaii. So now many extending the intake tube, deep sea water. So India, Taiwan, South Korea, Japan, US, and French Polynesia. So in this meeting, I would like to propose, very important proposed. So we have to change to the deep sea oil facilities. So now, until now, deep sea oil facilities only supported by electric company, but intake tube have to be the public infrastructures. So very important. So if you intake tube extending as a public infrastructure, so Otech is very increasing is a potential, because is a cost share is very important, not only electricity. So Otech and resilient economic development. So energy securities, water securities, energy saving, and food economic securities, and environment securities. So deep sea oil intake infrastructures installed as a utility can be provide economic development, climate and desire, residency, food, water, and job. Job is very important, because in now Kumejima, so very 2 times industry using deep sea oil. Before the deep sea oil, the sugarcane industry is the most highest industry, but now 2 times industries using deep sea oil application. So now, until now, deep sea oil intake and distributed piping and Otech construction have to be supplied by private companies. But we have to propose private sector is only Otech plant business, but intake pipe and distribution business, so supported public society as a public infrastructures. So in Kumejima now, until this facilities public, but Otech is a private sector. So Otech cost is dramatically decreasing, because intake tube is not only electricity. So we have to share all areas, water, energy, food, so on. So in Japan is estimated costs. Otech has a scale merit. Small Otech is not economically, at least is 1 megawatt. But if we share the intake tube, so dramatically changing the cost. So we have to recognize and we have to support intake tube as public facilities. So now in Japan is 100 kilowatts, next 1 mega, then 10 mega, finally 100 megawatt. So Unfortunately, limited time. So we have to, we want to introduce the latest topic of the Otech project. So very short time, so skip the presentation. First is a Kumejima 100% renewable energy model using Otech. Second, program the international platform, the Ocean Energy for the young researchers, human capability development. Third, the JICA and JST SATREPS project of the Malaysia so promoting the Sabah small island areas. So fourth, South Japan Pacific Island Countries Economic Forum. Fifth, UNIDO CTCN feasibility study on Otech in Nauru. So Kumejima announcement 100% Otech renewable energies. So now is this situation 24 hours only solar and diesel, but 1 megawatt Otech installed about 15% renewable energy. Finally, 2040. 6 Otech megawatt is 100% renewable energy with solar. So in Saga University holds a young research platform. So 1 week stays, so using Otech facilities training. So until now, from the Palau, every time is attending. So 60 countries, 19 countries, 50 young researchers attending. So JST, JICA, SATREPS projects promoting Otech in Sabah Small Island project. So this project is a new Otech, not only electricity and desalination, hybrid Otech. So this installed Malaysia model, Otech and power and byproduct. So this is a target to Malaysia model. So now we have human capability development. So if we possible, we want to hold the Pacific Island, people want to invite it this program. This is in Japan holds a third Japan Pacific Island countries. So more private sector's announcement is promoting Otech as a business sector. Kumejima 1 megawatt Otech and Mauritius Otech and floating 100 megawatt Otech. Now in Japan, the private sector very strongly promoting stage. Finally, the CTCN is last year started Otech pre-feasibility studies in Republic Nauru. So Nauru is almost 100% solar in renewable energy. So, but area is limited. So Republic of the Nauru interest is Otech. So propose the CTCN and the UNIDO. So Nauru has a good historical experiment. 1981 is installed the Otech. So restarted the Otech project. So this Nauru project is a UNIDO and the CTCN. So Japan team now conducted the feasibility studies. If possible, so next stage is a GCF is a supported Otech project. We hope. So if GCF is supported intake tube, so private sector Otech very easy to install. So Otech cost dramatically changed. So if we realize that this concept, so we can boost the potential. Small island areas are dramatically changing and speed up to the sustainable development. I believe the small island areas, Pacific Island, can be the energy island and very sustainable island. So let's start it, realize this concept using Otec. Thank you for attention.
Thank you very much, Professor Ikegami. Next up, we'll hear the perspective from SIDS, and perhaps we'll take a few questions thereafter. The next speaker, we have Mr. Tuti Chilton, the Executive Director of Palau Energy Administration and Ministry of Public Infrastructure, Industries and Commerce in Palau. Mr. Chilton's current role is basically, he's the NDC focal point and chair of the Pacific NDC Hub Steering Committee. Past 6 years, Mr. Chilton has been the Executive Director of Palau Energy Administration, and he also served as a teacher the last 18 years at Palau Community College. In terms of update from Palau, ladies and gentlemen, the Otec, you may have also heard briefly from Professor Ikegami with regards to the work that has gone in Palau. The project actually started in 1999. The studies are currently conducted by Saga University and Zensi in cooperation, and have identified at least 7 potential Otec sites, totaling 20 megawatts. In particular, these sites identify the possibility of potable water production, cooling of offices and hotels, seawater ice production, and hydrogen production and aquaculture. Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, let's hear the perspective from Palau from Mr. Tuti Chilton. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Pekele. Thank you, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all the participants today. Thank you, Professor Ikegami, for the presentation on Otec. I'll be very brief, considering the time that we have. One of the main reasons why Palau is very interested in Otec is because of the 3 securities that we're focusing on, based on SDG 2, zero hunger, SDG 3, good health and well-being, that will be focusing on food security. SDG 6, which is clean water and sanitation, that's focusing on water security. And SDG 7, affordable clean energy, of course, is our focus, which is clean energy security. So those 3 securities are what Palau is focusing on. We're always looking for different technologies to assist. And as Pekele has said, in 1999, Saga University came to Palau and did a demonstration, and we were very impressed with it. The only concern that Palau has always had and continues to have to this day is, of course, the cost. And as shown in the presentation, the cost is still nominal for small island developing states who have to focus their attention on other priorities, hoping that the GCF funding and other opportunities will come up. In the future, we will also see how this technology will be able to assist and focus on how Palau can become self-sustainable. Currently, our NDCs are focusing in 2025 to be 45% renewable energy, specifically with solar. And beyond 2025, in the pathway to 2050, this is where the focus of the Otec is very promising. Considering the time frame, we're looking to see how the technology can become more economically viable. A lot of the scales that have been mentioned earlier, we were talking about 10 megawatts and up, are very good in the context of Palau. We have a 30 megawatt capacity that we need in the main islands of Koror and Babadab. But at the same time, we talk about financing and roughly around 10 million per megawatt. Even with public and private partnerships, that is still very difficult for Palau at this time. Again, not discounting the technology is very useful and we want to move forward in the future. That's why we're including it in our IRENA roadmap perspective for beyond 2025 in the pathway to 2050, as we look to a possible 100% fossil fuel free Palau. So once again, the most important focus with Otec and the possibilities in connection with green hydrogen is something that is very promising for island states, as already mentioned earlier by our keynote address. the Secretary General, and currently with the outline from Amjad that he already presented. Food security, water security, and energy security. The only thing that I would like to mention that I'm trying to sell this idea of Otech is not necessarily an energy production. Energy production is an important part of it, but we need to highlight more what the possibilities or the byproducts are. Considering that water is an SDG, we need to see how we can use that to make sure that we create enough water supplies, not just for island nations that are isolated by the shipping of supplies, as we can see now with some of the shipping delays based on the COVID supply chain issues that are going on. So this is a great opportunity, not just for self and sustainable development, but also for maintaining and focusing on the SDGs that are very important to Palau as well as the rest of the countries that are members of the UN. Finally, in the context of policies, we were developing this roadmap with the help of Irina in 2017 to get us focused on our target of 45% renewable energy by 2025. And is also considered helping us currently in 2021 with this roadmap that outlines the hybrid systems of solar, green hydrogen, and we're also attaching Otech as a possible work beyond 2025 and towards the 2050 goals that we have. So that in mind, those are some of the challenges, some of the promising technology uses for Otech. And Palau continues to be a great supporter of Otech and looking forward to see how Nauru and other countries within the Pacific, as well as the Caribbean and the Indian Ocean, will be able to use it. Please consider Palau as a place that we can pilot and work on these technologies in a private public partnership, and look forward to hearing from you and everyone else in the panel today. Thank you very much, Dr. Kelly, but that will be all for today. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Tuti. I'm moving right on in terms of perspective from SIDS. We also have the Chief Executive Officer of Nauru Utilities Company, Mr. Kamain Pondosi. Basically, we've heard very briefly with regards to the update from Nauru and the work that was done there. Basically, 100 kilowatt Otech plant was constructed for demonstration purposes in the Republic of Nauru in 1981. It was the first highest Otech plant ever operational and first and to feed into the operational commercial grid. However, due to the weather events, this Otech plant did suffer the significant damages and the project itself was discontinued. Since the installation of the Otech plant in 1981, there have been significant improvements in Otech technology and design with the side benefits such as production of large amount of fresh water, something that you heard from Tuti is very essential when it comes to our small island states. However, Nauru certainly lacks technical and financial resources to put the project up again, and at the moment, trying to conduct a feasibility study and assess the potential for Otech in comparison to other ocean energy solutions. So without further ado, let's hear very briefly from Mr. Kamain Pondosi. Thank you. Go ahead, Mr. Pondosi.
Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon, and thank you for this opportunity to share Nauru's experience. A lot of the brief information that's been provided about the Otech that was installed started back in 1970, and it was commissioned around 1980. It was about 130 kilowatts, and it was a pilot scheme at the time. We've had to collate this information. Obviously, I wasn't here when it was implemented, but it did operate. It was commissioned and tested. It did operate for a short period of time until it was damaged by an environmental event. It did produce around 90 kilowatts for the system, for the unit itself, and it did export around 30 kilowatts to a school. So it was operating, it was successful, but because of the event and it was damaged, I suspect that at the time that financing and restoring the Otec plant went sideways. Nauru itself doesn't have a lot of different options for renewable energy. At the moment, it's a energy roadmap and target for renewables is around 50% by 2022. And primarily the renewable energy sources that we have access to is really solar. There's not a lot of options for wind or any other type of renewable energy. So at the moment, we're constructing a 6 to 7 megawatt solar plant, which will take us up to around 50%, and that should be completed by 2023. As Professor Ikegami referred to, we are performing and undertaking a feasibility study to revive the Otech technology back into Nauru. Of course, there's a number of hurdles and issues that would need to be considered. Apart from the environment, it would be also land access and financing and cost issues around the re-establishment of Otech plant in Nauru. Keeping in mind, Nauru is a very small economy, very small island, very remote, population of about 12,500 people. Demand is quite flat, around 5.7 megawatts, primarily diesel generation in place to meet that demand. But we're looking forward to the opportunity that maybe Otech can provide us to further our target for 100% renewable at some point in time. Thank you very much. That's a summary of Nauru's position at the moment.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Pendosi. Ladies and gentlemen, we also have Dr. Kajal Fauda from the Research and Development Officer from the Mauritius Renewable Energy Agency. In 2018, a model was designed and implemented, which resulted in the production of GIS maps describing the distribution of Otech resources around the island of Mauritius. From the maps and the appropriateness that was undertaken, southwestern region of the island was revealed and is attributed to higher sea and surface temperatures at the place, and deep cold water availability at proximity of less than 5 kilometers from the coastline. The installation of 100 megawatts plant in the southern region is believed to be the capacity that Mauritius is actually looking at. A cost-benefit analysis has been performed and suggested cost estimates to around 410 million with an O&M cost of about 6.5 million. However, they've significant benefits. Up to 7 years of operation can be simulated that there are significant benefits to the tune of about 1.9 billion can be generated from the project, and therefore found profitable in the long run. So perhaps, ladies and gentlemen, let's hear from Mr. Fauda before I request questions or response to your questions in the chat box. Thank you. Mr. Fauda, yeah. Mr. Fauda, are you online? Sorry, ladies and gentlemen. Perhaps we can I ask some of my colleagues to probably respond to the questions that are on the chat box? Thank you. Or perhaps we'll move on to Mr. Gilles Deal from the Bahamas, ladies and gentlemen. In terms of update and also perspective from SIDS from the Bahamas, a paper by SIDS Doc and Saga University showed potential for
Good day, everyone.
Yeah, thank you. A paper from SIDS Doc and Saga University showed the potential for possible Otech plants in Providence and also the Grand Bahama, where there are large populations located. Proposed next technical steps were to perform a feasibility study, which will confirm the data and optimal site location, electric grid connection point, costing and consumption data. These details could then be used in terms of detailed design of the Otech plant that is currently envisaged for the Bahamas. Back in 2011, the Bahamas Electric Corporation and the Ocean Thermal Energy Corp signed an MOU for the development of 2 commercial Otech plants. But as of to date, we have yet to receive the reported updates on the installation, ladies and gentlemen. Without further ado, let's hear from Mr. Gilles Deal on the current status or situation in the Bahamas. Thank you very much.
Hello, everyone. This is Gilles Deal, Ministry of Environment Energy Officer. On the matter which I was questioned on, that pilot project was actually a project that was proposed by our newest mega resort, Bahama. They proposed to put in Otech to produce air conditioning, well, for air conditioning and for desalination purposes. Unfortunately, that project did not pass the environmental parameters, and so it was sidelined due to that matter mainly. The issue was where they proposed to put the main line was going to interfere with our main undersea communications cable, which would have been a major issue for them to hurdle. Additionally, the intrusion into the seabed, the required amount of intrusion into the seabed was also an issue because that is one of our major beaches. And as the environmental unit didn't, the proposal didn't show where it would not affect the beach, the sand on the beach movements or cause erosion. And so it was stopped due to that fact, and other studies had to be performed. During this time, the mega resort decided to just go with the usual, unfortunately, until they can get approval for Otech. But that's basically where it's at now presently. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gilles. Ladies and gentlemen, from the various presenters that we've had in this particular session, we've heard on the models and the various applications that are currently being trialed by Professor Ikigami in Japan, and also the importance of partnership, particularly in terms of the intake tube, an important issue that we need to realize moving forward. And also in terms of the employment that it generates and all the utilization of of those applications, ladies and gentlemen. With time not on our side, perhaps if there's probably if we can have someone to respond to some of the questions that are on the chat, please. and we can move on to the next session. Thank you.
Thank you, Pedeli, for moderating the session effectively. And thank you to all the presenters and the speakers for the information that's shared, proving the case studies, the success stories, lessons learned of Otech being deployed at various stages in SIDS in all the three regions. We've noted the questions that are coming in. We will circle back after the next session to answer some of them. And we also invite the speakers, presenters to address the questions in the chat box. We've noted that there were some questions on financing, investment, as well as the resources needed for deploying Otech in small island developing states. And that is the focus of our next session. We will be hearing about the support that is available to SIDS from IRENA. There will also be a presentation from the European Commission on the support that is available to the EU overseas countries and territories. And we will also hear about some of the lessons learned from the Otech project in Martinique. And of course, as usual in all sessions, we will also be hearing some of the SIDS perspective about their financing needs and other resources. Our next speaker is Mr. Tariq Ahmed. Tariq is our program officer with our project facilitation division and hosts two flagship initiatives to support improve access to finance. One, the Climate Investment Platform, and the second one is the Energy Transition Accelerator platform. I now invite Tariq to deliver his presentation.
Thank you very much, Arietta. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. It's my pleasure to be presenting today about what IRENA is doing in order to support and facilitate the investment for energy projects. Just I want to make sure that everyone can see my screen.
Yes, we can, Tariq.
Is it full screen or?
Yes, yes, it is.
Okay. Okay, so today I'll be presenting about the initiatives that IRENA is doing to unlock renewable energy investment through project facilitation and support. I will be touching on the gap of investments that is needed to achieve the target of net zero by 2050 and the challenges that we are facing, and then how IRENA is working to support to address that gap, and then to speak about the initiatives, about the climate investment platform, what needs it addresses, and who can access the CIB and how to access it, and the eligibility criteria. And then also to give a snapshot of the current status of the projects supported. And then I will also touch on the new initiative, which is the Energy Transition Accelerator financing platform. So if you look at this graph, which is part of the IRENA flagship report, the World Energy Transition Outlook, published in 2021, we will see clearly that there is a huge gap between the current plans and the ambition to achieve 1.1 degrees by 2050. We will fall short with the current plans by $33 trillion that needed to be able to achieve the target. So when we look at the difficulties that are facing the developing countries, including the SIDS, it's obvious that like the high initial cost of investment is one of the main barriers for the uptake of renewable energy and clean energy technologies. And also, in addition to that, the lack of capacities and resources to prepare and develop investment-ready renewable energies, as well as to facilitate access to finance. So there is risk perception from the financial institutions about renewable energies in these regions, as well as there is, on the other hand, lack of capacities. And this, at the end of the day, result in inadequate financing for renewable energy. And that needs strengthened risk mitigation and management, and needs more tailored kind of support to project proponents and to different projects in different locations in order to channel these investments and to create a steady pipeline of projects. So at IRENA, we looked at this carefully, and we tried to kind of help in reducing the transaction time and transaction cost by identifying adequate stakeholder and ensuring that projects are presented with the right content to the right financiers. We noticed that, like, typically with projects, it might take from 7 to 9 years sometimes to reach the financial close, and that even with very well prepared projects, it might take up to like 2 years to reach the financial close. With that in mind, we at IRENA, we hosted 2 flagship initiatives, as Arietta mentioned, the Climate Investment Platform and Energy Transition and Accelerator platform, to support projects on the ground, to build the pipeline, and to then to do the matchmaking to find the right financier. And we do that through different ways. We support first the creation of the pipeline. We do also, we are planning to do a regional investment forums where we bring investors and as well as project proponents on the table, and then also to promote and facilitate the public-private partnerships at the end of the day to support the global IRENA global investment and financing plan in the post-COVID agenda. I'll speak briefly about the Climate Investment Platform, which is an initiative that is launched in 2019 by IRENA, UNDP, and SE4All in coordination with Green Climate Fund, to mainly touch on 4 key building blocks in the climate value chain. To enhance the climate targets, policies and regulations, and also to create the marketplace, and also to do financial de-risking. At IRENA, we are leading the climate, the risk mitigation and matchmaking activities with a mandate to mobilize capital towards developing countries, mainly to scale up the renewable energy technologies to meet the NDC targets. We have our, this flagship initiatives, the CIB, each organization is supporting it from its own angle. So we have our virtual website where we have IRENA for CIB. We are receiving projects that are requesting technical assistance and support. And also we have partners that are registered to provide the needed support or to receive opportunities. So these numbers just show a couple of numbers about the number of projects that we received. We received around 285 projects, and we have more than 300 registered partners, including almost 70 financial institutions. We support projects, project proponents, as I mentioned, that request our support. We are demand driven. We provide technical assistance to prepare project information document in a presentable way and also touches on the needs of the financial institutions. Our eligibility criteria are quite flexible, where we need the project to contribute to the clean energy transition and to be aligned with sustainable development goals, and to be also aligned and consistent with the national climate action priorities, and also to be beyond conceptual stage. So we don't support just ideas, but we need to see that the project proponents already invested in the preparation. On the other hand, we have, as I mentioned, more than 300 partners registered from different multilateral, bilateral, and local financial institutions, in addition to development organization and technical assistance providers. I go here to show the snapshot of the current support that happened in the last year. From 2020, we have supported around 33 projects. Now we have 20 projects that are ready for matchmaking, and we've already started introducing this project to potential financiers. And we have matched around 8 projects with financiers for further consideration. This shows just the geographical distribution of the requests coming and the projects supported to date that met our eligibility criteria and received our support to date. The process is, as I mentioned, demand-driven, but once the project registers, they will go through a rigorous pre-screening criteria and review from experts. Once it's accepted in our portfolio, we help them and match them with a transaction advisor funded by IRENA. And then after that, when the project information document is ready, we do the financial matchmaking. The energy transition, and now I will speak about the energy transition accelerator financing platform, which is the second initiative after IRENA ADFD facility, which ran for 7 years from 2013 to 2020. So ETAF has been launched in 2021 in the COP26 by participation of IRENA and ADFD and UAE. So ETAF is an inclusive multi-stakeholder climate financing platform to advance the energy transition agenda, and with the main goal of mobilizing around $1 billion. Already UAE via ADFD have pledged to invest $400 million. And we are still working with other potential partners to come on board and to support the initiative. So ETAF is going to also support with clear envelope to support project developers to access funding, provided by its funding partners and co-funding sources. And one of the benefits that they will receive, the project proponents and developers, they will receive like technical assistance through IRENA resources and experts. And also they will receive curated guidance on technical assistance. The submission will be on a rolling basis, but periodically conduct activities to offer guidance on how the project should register and how the process should go. This is still not yet open, but it's coming in the near future. For funding partners, the benefit is that they access diverse range of small and medium and large scale projects. And they benefit also from local and regional developers that are well know the complexities of their own countries and regions. And also there is an opportunity to co-invest in opportunities and blend resources to better support projects. And at the end of the day, the selection of the funding partners itself is going through kind of harmonized process to make sure that the credit risk guidelines and compliance procedure and internal policies are relevant and there is no any issues in that sense. Thank you very much. I stop here. And if any question, I can also respond via chat.
Thank you very much, Tariq, for your intervention. Our next speaker is Mr. Roman Dubrova, who is the head of the Innovation Fund Unit, European Climate, Infrastructure and Environment Executive Agency with the European Commission. Mr. Dubrova has been with the European Commission for over 13 years and has experience with different EC programs such as the Innovation Fund, Modernization Fund, and ER300 program, the PF4 EE instrument, and low carbon innovation and financing. He has been part of the development and implementation of EU energy policies focusing on energy efficiency, financing, financial instruments, and investment. I now invite Mr. Roman Dubrova to make his intervention, and also thank him sincerely for joining us at such a short notice. Roman, you have the floor.
Thank you, and good late evening from Brussels. I'll try to share my screen for you. Okay, can you? Okay, can you see the slides? Hello?
Yes, I can see the slide. You just have to put it on the slideshow, the presentation mode.
What I did, I have two screens. So,
yes.
Okay, let's try again, and I'll do it differently. I'll put it in that. Okay, is this better now?
Yes, excellent.
Okay, thank you very much for inviting me to this seminar today, and I will present to you an innovation fund, which is the European program that is supporting innovative low carbon technologies in EU member states, Norway and Iceland, and which also includes supporting innovative renewable energy projects, including Otec technology. Okay, so Innovation Fund, what is it? It is the one of the biggest funding instruments worldwide, which is financed from the EU emissions trading system. So this is funded from the emission allowances, which are sold, and the proceeds, the revenues of those allowances are used to be reinvested in the form of support to investment projects on the ground. The fund is covering 4 major areas, as you can see on the screen, and it's quite wide in terms of technology coverage or sectoral coverage. We are covering innovative renewable energy technologies. This also includes the manufacturing plants for components. We are covering carbon capture, use and storage, energy-intensive industries, decarbonization, low carbon investments in chemicals, steel, cement, and so on. And we are also covering projects in energy storage applications, which also includes, for instance, manufacturing of batteries or their components. And the key objective of the Innovation Fund is to share the risk with the project promoters and enable scaling up of these low carbon clean technologies at the commercial scale on the market, in the real marketplace. So a few words about what are the key features of the Innovation Fund. As I said, it is financed from the EU emissions trading system. The volume of the fund until 2030, as you see on the screen, is 25 billion euros, but this is even obsolete number because this is calculated at the price of 50 euros per ton of CO2. Today we have the price of 90 euros, so the volume is much bigger. The fund is deployed through annual calls for proposals for projects. We have 2 types of projects that we can support, so-called large-scale projects which have the capital expenditure above 7.5 million euros, and small-scale projects which have the capital expenditure below 7.5 million euros. How are we supporting these investments? So in the large-scale projects, we provide financing of up to 60% of additional capital and operating costs during 10 years of operation. So since these projects enter into commercial operation, we can finance up to 60% of their operating costs and recover up to 60% of the capital cost. These are additional compared to the traditional technologies which they are in fact replacing. In the case of small scale projects, we have a simplified rule. We simply support up to 60% of additional capital expenditure of these projects. And yes, we are monitoring them only for 3 years after they enter into operation. The grants can be provided in various tranches. This is a lump sum payment instrument. So normally we are matching with financing the normal milestones of the projects from the preparation through construction and during operation. 40% of the support can be provided and disbursed at the financial close of these projects. This financial close must be reached within 4 years since the grant is signed for these projects. And the rest, at least 60% of the grant, is paid out during construction and during the operating period. And the 60% of our financing is depending on the real greenhouse gas emissions that these projects avoid while they are operating. So there is the linkage between the amount of the funding and the real operating performance of the projects, which is then checked through the greenhouse gas emissions that these projects avoid or displace. I already mentioned that the Innovation Fund covers EU member states, Norway and Iceland. So the projects must be located on these territories. And this also includes the 9 outermost regions of the EU, which is Martinique, Guadeloupe, La Réunion, Mayotte, Saint Martin, French Guiana, Saint Pierre and Miquelon, Saint Barthélemy, and La Réunion. So also these island countries can get support if the projects are located on their territories. And we also provide additional support in the form of project development assistance, which is then deployed through the European Investment Bank to the projects that are selected. We are assessing the projects, the proposals against 5 selection criteria, the key criteria that you can see on the screen. As we are funded from the EU Emissions Trading Scheme, which is the key policy under the EU Green Deal, obviously our major objective is to support projects that lead to significant greenhouse gas emissions avoidance. Therefore, our first criterion is how much emissions these projects avoid, both in terms of absolute emissions and relative emissions. And we also assess the quality and credibility of the calculation of these emissions avoided. I must say that for the calculation of emissions, we have a bespoke methodology, which is based on life cycle analysis methods. And this methodology is published on the website and is applied across the projects that apply for funding. Then the second criterion is the degree of innovation. Go beyond the state of the art. Another criterion is the project, what is the composition of the partners, how well are these organizational, legal and financial elements settled when they apply for funding, how ready these projects are to be built and operated on the market, and what is the financial viability of these investments. We are also checking their potential scalability in the future, because we are interested to support technologies that have potential to grow, to be implemented across different territories in the future. And of course, we are checking what is the cost efficiency of this project. So what is the grant that is requested compared to the greenhouse gas emissions that are planned to be avoided. So these are the 5 criteria that are used to assess the projects that apply for funding. Based on those, the projects are scored and the best projects are selected. I can present you the first results because the Innovation Fund is a new instrument. It has been launched just last year. We have already closed 2 call for proposals, one for large-scale projects and one for small-scale projects. And as you can see on the screen, we are able to finance quite a lot of funding for per project. So you see we have selected 7 very big projects, mostly from industrial sectors, and 1 big project from renewable energy production in Europe, where we are planning to support them through more than 1 billion euros. 15 projects got the project development assistance. And from the small scale call, we have awarded 30 winning projects with grants of more than 100 million. And again, 10 small scale projects are also benefiting from project development assistance with the European Investment Bank. As regards the Otec technologies, we are open for any innovative renewable energy technology. This also includes Otec. However, in the previous calls, we haven't seen any project from the Otec technology side. We have received 4 proposals in the large-scale call on ocean energy, and 4 proposals also from ocean energy. However, there was none covering Otec. We had 1 salinity gradient project in the large-scale call. None of these ocean energy projects were selected at the end of the day. And the main reason for not being selecting was, in fact, their quite weak financial maturity, because we have an obligation that these projects that are selected sign their financial close within 4 years since the grant agreement, and none of these ocean projects were in fact in position to do so. Another lesson learned that we have is the predecessor program, the NER 300 program, where we had actually 1 Otec project which was planned to be operated close to Martinique, the island of Martinique. This project was supposed to receive around 72 million euros in support. And despite the fact that they managed to achieve all administrative authorizations already in 2017, the project failed to enter into operation by 2020, which was the deadline under the NER 300 program. And the main reason here was the technical impediment and the impossibility to solve the technical issues. And here it was mostly related to the main deep cold water riser, which was not technically mature, that would allow this project to enter into operation by the deadline given by the program. So what is happening now? We have currently open a large-scale call. So for those projects with capital expenditure above 7.5 million euros, we are closing this call on the 3rd of March. The budget is 1.5 billion euros for grants. And I already mentioned the selection criteria and how the grant is being distributed. So this is the current call, which we will close on the 3rd of March. And we are also preparing for the next calls. So in 2022, we will open another call for small scale projects. So those below 7.5 million euros capex. That call will be is planned to be launched at the end of March with the deadline for applications by the end of summer. And then we will move on to evaluate the projects and select the winners. And we are also planning a next large-scale call towards the end of this year. So again, for the projects with capital expenditure above 7.5 million euros. Normally, we have the periodicity of annual calls for both large-scale and small-scale projects. So every year we have both calls opened, and this is also planned for the next years. I have put for you here some useful links with videos, with more information, with conditions for the call. So please do not hesitate and have a look. You will find all the details on the websites. We are trying to be quite transparent with what we do. There is a lot of material available with some lessons learned, with statistics, with some key takeaways from the previous calls, and with some guidance for project promoters to prepare their applications for the forthcoming calls. And here you can find more information. As I mentioned, we are quite active in promoting the information, the conditions and possibilities that the Innovation Fund supports. And to conclude, I do very much hope that in the future we will see more successful projects from the Otech technological pathway in the program. As I said, we are quite limited geographically. Nevertheless, we have 9 island nations, the outermost regions, that can be eligible if the projects are located on their territories. And I hope that also with IRENA, we will be able to, because it was very interesting what you presented about the climate investment platform and the activities to help the projects to be developed. So I also hope that with your support, we will see more of these projects coming in, and we are very keen to welcome them in the Innovation Fund. Thank you very much for having me today.
Thank you very much, Roman, for the very detailed and very informative presentation on the Innovation Fund, noting the support that you're providing to the OCTAs, the 9 island territories in their energy transition efforts. Also, a key takeaway is the lessons learned from the call 2020 on Otech, as SIDS are developing their proposals, working with IRENA and other funds that support them. They can take some of these key lessons into consideration. Also noting the lessons learned from Martinique, as we share similarities in economies and scale with the small island developing states. Thank you so much, Roman.
Thank you.
We will now move on to our SIDS speakers to get their perspectives on financing, whether they're the needs or looking at the costs or other policy recommendations or issues that they might want to share with us. Our next speaker is Ms. Sherry Wythe, the project officer with the Division of Energy in the Ministry of Energy Business Development in Barbados. Sherry, I now invite you to share your perspective.
Hi, good evening, everyone from Barbados, and good morning. So we'll be sharing Barbados's experience as it relates to Otech this afternoon. Okay. So I just wanted to set the context of how we started Otech in Barbados. So Ocean Energy efforts by the Ministry of Energy and Business Development commenced in 2013 under the Smart Energy Program. The public sector Smart Energy Program is financed through loan resources of $17 million through the IDB and a US 7.6 grant from the European Union. The project's aim is to promote and implement the use of renewable energy and energy efficient measures that are viable in the public sector. Ultimately, the program will help to reduce Barbados's fossil fuel dependency, promote sustainable energy, and therefore contribute to the country's competitiveness. As part of this work, a series of ocean energy interventions were undertaken during the period 2015 to 2021. Ocean energy has the potential to provide an important contribution to Barbados's future renewable energy mix. The development of technologies to exploit this resource offers significant opportunities to grow Barbados's blue economy by supporting future sustainable marine offshore industries, whilst ultimately seeking to reduce carbon emissions to ensure a sustainable future, which is grounded in the Barbados National Energy Policy. So as I said, we started in 2015 and we started with some GIS studies. which conducted preliminary assessments of Barbados' territorial waters to identify, collect, convert, and assemble existing coastal, marine, wind, and oceanographic data for the marine environment. This resulted in a series of maps, data sets, which include biophysical, jurisdictional, ecological, infrastructural, and space use, depicting Barbados' used and unused ocean spaces. However, some critical data gaps were identified. In 2016, through technical assistance from the IDB, we did an ocean energy scoping study, which evaluated all OE technologies and defined the most appropriate technologies for Barbados. The recommendations included Otec and fixed offshore wind as high suitability, floating offshore wind, seawater air conditioning, and wave energy as medium suitability, and ocean current technologies and tidal technologies as low suitability. However, as the years went on, floating offshore wind was considered a high suitability for Barbados. In 2017, again with the IDB's assistance, we sought to do an ocean energy implementation roadmap, which culminated in detailed scope of works and a budget for an ocean energy consultancy. We also had the second phase of the GIS work, which was a locational and marine spatial mapping in the territorial waters to better define the areas that we can use the technologies that were defined. And 3 preferred development sites were developed based on resource conditions. In 2019, we were able to procure an international firm through international tender for an ocean energy study. This study looked at the technical and environmental studies as well as related capacity building activities to investigate the feasibility and facilitate the construction of a large-scale ocean energy power plant for Barbados. ITPE, along with their team of experts, commenced work in January 2020 to support the government of Barbados in achieving our 2020 net zero target. The project was concluded in March 2021. The body of work that the consultants looked at was very extensive, and it ranged from background information on the electricity sector to the legislative framework, supply chain, tourism, map production. We had workshops to engage stakeholders, and as well as cost estimations and financial implications for the project, the technologies at hand. Otech in Barbados. So 3 sizes were considered: a 1 megawatt plant, a 10 megawatt plant, and a 20 megawatt plant. The 20 megawatt plant was semi-submersible platform with white spars, and the 1 megawatt and the 10 cell spar platforms were considered. So in Barbados, we looked at where these technologies may be applied, and it was considered that it may be applicable through the western side of the island, and also considered was Otech for the northern side of the island. But due to the difficulties in terms of landing and cables, this was not considered to be feasible. So Otech challenges: the landing sites, identification of areas of suitable sea depth within acceptable distance to shore, lack of commercial maturity, high upfront cost, and high risk. The consultants then took an approach that looked at building out an Otech plant from the regulatory framework down to the decommissioning, and a number of assumptions were made. More importantly though, we looked at the costing. It was projected that the total project cost for a 10 megawatt Otech plant was most favorable for Barbados. But the cost, the estimated cost of such a project was US $243 million. The financial analysis projects was undertaken for the 6 best performing projects. An analysis was taken further to look at all the technologies in the study, which included the fixed offshore, the floating offshore, and the Otec. The finance rank was used as the IRR as an indicator for investors. Notwithstanding, the least cost of energy indicated that offshore wind will be the most financeable with the existing renewable feed-in tariff of US $120 per megawatt. This shows a financial summary of the ranking of the projects, and you can see that the Otech plant was ranked with a capex of 65% and an IRR of 18%. So for Barbados, floating offshore wind is considered, highly considered as a viable option for renewable energy with respect to ocean energy for Barbados, and conceptual designs of a generic jacket type bottom fixed offshore wind foundation and conceptual design of a generic semi-submersible type floating offshore foundation will be considered. So a weighting was done to actually assist in the ranking of the projects. And this included the financial data, the cost savings through the lifetime of the project, the value to the tourism sector. As you know, we are a tourism-based island, the distance from shore, the perceived resistance from locals and tourists, based on the time requirement to develop and construct the project, with 2030 as our projected timeline, and the subjective view based on the environmental scoping report and the technical reports. So as you can see, the Otech ranked last in a number of areas. So for Barbados, floating offshore wind projects, particularly those in the north, are highly favorable. Fixed offshore wind project on the north of the island also shows prospects. The fixed offshore wind in the north only ranked fourth on the final list, but it did rank first on the finance list, and thus would be considered. The maximum wind turbines investigated was 12 8-megawatt turbines, totaling 96 megawatts per wind farm site with direct connection to the shore and no offshore substations. The nearshore ocean space of Barbados could accommodate projects of significantly larger scale, as published in a recent study done by the IDB and others on the wider Caribbean, including Barbados, which identified a 8.5 gigawatt of theoretical potential with a maximum technical exploitable potential of 7.18 gigawatts. So is Otech feasible for Barbados? Otech at this time is not deemed to be a technology of high interest in the period to 2030. The key challenges were found to be extremely high upfront costs and high levels of technical and commercial risk associated with the technology. Both of these factors indicated that in order for a commercial project of significant scale, say 10 megawatts, to proceed, a large proportion of the overall project cost will need to be met by a non-repayable grant. Notwithstanding, this technology may be a viable option in the long term as Barbados continues to decarbonize. Ladies and gentlemen, I thank you.
Ms. Sherry, thank you for sharing Barbados' perspective on ocean energy deployment. It is encouraging to see the detailed feasibility studies, the efforts you have made, and in ranking the different options that is available to your country. Ms. Sherry will definitely be reaching out to you to share your experiences and findings if other SIDS reach out to us to learn from you. Thank you again for your presentation. I'll now invite our next speaker, Mr. Simona Kilei, the Director of Energy of the Ministry of Transport, Energy and Tourism of Tuvalu, to share his insights. Simona, you now have the floor.
Talofa, can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear. Talofa, Simona.
Talofa, good morning. Thank you for the opportunity to make a few remarks in this session. I will be brief. From SIDS, with a large ocean and limited land, Tuvalu is keen to develop an Otech hub to assist with the electricity supply. At the moment, we are planning to commence a feasibility study exploring potential for such. Some of the key issues that we would like clarification, and this may be true for other states as well, is first and foremost the viability and the maturity of the technology. Here we would also like to reach out to Nauru and get most of lessons learned from their project, as well as other SIDS project experiences. The next thing is the availability of funds for such projects, as SIDS comes with such limits. And the two previous presentation was very informative, and we'll definitely check them out. The next is just depth and the distance from the foreshore on which the Otech can be set up. And lastly is the expected risk associated for such projects. Thank you. I think that's all from me. Bye.
Simona, thank you for sharing Tuvalu's perspectives and the planned feasibility studies that you're going to undertake on the ocean technologies. You have raised important issues on maturity and applicability, as well as the financing aspects of such technologies. I've also noted that the Director of Energy in Fiji has joined us, Mika Mbelena. And I believe he's joined us tonight, and if he has a few minutes to also share his perspectives with us. Mika, you have the floor.
Thank you, Arietta. Firstly, I would like to take this time to thank Arena for organizing this webinar, and also to the presentation that we've heard this morning. It's quite interesting that to note that you know, the Otec Energy has gone through some developments in terms of the various programs and activities that have been undertaken by the respective countries. Yeah, for Fiji, we have around 50% of our energy supply from renewable energy, predominantly through hydropower. And we've got our target, our NDC target, and our commitments towards the Paris Agreement, and also some of the national framework documents that have been put in place, particularly with our low emission development strategy, and also our national energy policy, which is currently in the final stage of endorsement by government. Looking at Otec Energy, we've done some collaboration research together with our local institution, particularly with the South Pacific, looking at the various sites that we have. There's been some studies done. I know from our perspective in terms of moving forward, we need support from Irina, and also looking at the and it's quite interesting to see the various application technology, not only looking at power supply, but the various other application in terms of desalination, which I believe is very much in need for our islands, not particularly for those in the remote maritime islands that are also facing supply of clean drinking water. So desalination plant will be a very a good technology that we look at in terms of combining it with Otec. Yes, in terms of technical support and also financial support, looking at the investments that are available, I think it would be good that with Arena support, we can take the technology forward to the next step, maybe through some sort of demonstration, and also looking at the the later stage in terms of the commercialization. But I believe this is something that we will consider, maybe towards the medium or the long-term plan, with regards to the the various development plans that we already have in place. So with those few contributions, again, I would like to thank Irina for this great opportunity. Naka.
Thank you, Mika, for sharing Fiji's perspective in accelerating the deployment of renewables, not only to meet your NDC targets, but also addressing the sustainable development goals. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished colleagues, we have now come to the end of the webinar. And I would just like to give all the speakers an opportunity. If there is a key takeaway that you want to share with the listeners tonight, this morning, this afternoon, on the deliberations we've had, the presentations we've listened to, I'm going to give each of you a minute. Please, maybe I can start with Amjad, if you are still online, then we'll move to Professor Ikegami.
Yes, thank you. I'm in this seminar, I believe and I trust to the accelerate the Otech for the SIDS. Yeah, so from this seminar, I believe the started accelerate the Otech. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Ikegami. To our colleagues in SIDS, Roman, Tariq, if anything that you want to share, last message for our listeners tonight.
Yes, many thanks again. And my key message is don't give up. This is the very important technology with huge potential. And as we have seen in other renewable technologies, which were also taking some time to maturity, I'm confident that with the right investors behind, with understanding of need for certain patient capital until the technologies are getting to maturity, I'm sure we will see more of these projects maturing. And I would be very happy to see applications also under our innovation fund, and we are happy to support such projects. Thank you very much again, and have a nice day. Bye.
Thank you very much, Roman. That is well noted. And definitely, if islands are well known for something, we do not give up, and yeah. we will keep going. Since we do not have any other interventions from the other speakers, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank you all again, the speakers, and to all the participants for the insightful discussions that have ensued all throughout the webinar. Apologies if we did not address your questions, but we have noted them all down, and we will be directing them to the specific speakers and come back to you over the course of time. In closing, Irina, through the SIDS Lighthouses Initiative, will continue to support SIDS in the energy transition efforts, and will work closely and in collaboration with all our regional and international partners to ensure that SIDS meet their NDCs and achieve the Agenda 2030 Sustainable Development. Just some key takeaways, a short summary that we have heard and put together. A detailed summary will be made available later on. One is that Otech is not just about electricity production, but also helps SIDS meet SDGs and NDC targets, as I've said. The need to consider Otech economics through all the byproducts, water, fisheries, agriculture, the different nexus. And this will also ensure the bankability of the project, where investment companies will be interested to fund, and viable option for SIDS in terms of moving forward the energy transition efforts. In spite of the fact that Otech costs are high, we should always work in tandem with partners to find avenues to reduce the costs, yeah? And ensure that this is supported by the private companies We've noted that from the 70s, the private companies have been taking the lead. But for scaling up, we need public financing support and also to strengthen the public-private partnerships. As I've said before, detailed summary of this webinar will be made available to you all, and we will be communicating this to you via email and also through our website and social media platforms. So with this, I would like to thank you all again for your participation, and I wish you all good health and look forward to continuing our collaboration towards choosing action and implementation for our future. Please stay safe and goodbye from Abu Dhabi.